Hi everyone! In this video, I'm going to discuss with you some basic counting strategies that can help you a lot if you just started learning the piano. This is something I still use until now, may it be when I'm practicing, learning a new piece, or when I'm teaching my students how to even the notes they're trying to play. But before we start, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel for more free piano lessons and tutorials. I also upload technical and musical analysis, especially in the classical and Baroque period. Let us now begin. First on the list is counting dotted quarter notes and eighth notes by using the syllable end. For most of my adult students, we're using the Layla Fletcher Adult Piano course, and one thing I've noticed is that all of them start to have a really hard time when dotted notes are introduced, specifically the dotted quarter note, which is usually followed by an eighth note, like in the example which I'm going to show you above. The example piece being illustrated above is in 3/4, meaning we have a total count of 3 beats in each measure. The complicated thing about this type of rhythm is knowing how long we should be counting the dotted quarter note. Of course, for beginners, it isn't that easy if you'll just use the basic counting pattern 1, 2, 3, simply because the eighth note that comes after the dotted quarter note won't fall on any of the numbers. As you probably all know by now, a dotted quarter note has 1.5 beat. In order to count this type of rhythm, we need to learn how to subdivide the notes properly. Counting quarter notes is easy since you just need to press one note a beat. 1, 2, 3. But when 8 notes are present, 1, 2, 3, there are notes that you play in the middle of each count. To account for these notes, we need to think of a counting strategy that we can use without losing our count on the main beats. This is where the word end, which we can shorten by using the letter N by the way, becomes very helpful. By placing the letter N in the middle of the beats, you are subdividing one beat or the quarter note into 2 halves. Also, by doing so, each count now corresponds half a beat. This actually has a lot of benefits. First, you put to account the 8 notes that are normally not being counted using our normal way of counting, and this strategy can help you build a consistent tempo as you practice. I'm going to talk a little about this later on. Now in our example, you have to first figure out how many halves are there in a dotted quarter note. So we have 2 halves to make one quarter note, and another half to account for the dot, which lengthens the duration of the note by half of its value. All in all, we have 3 halves in a dotted quarter note. So by using this strategy, we can now count our dotted quarter note as 1, N, 2, and the 8th note that comes after it as another N. All we have left now is a quarter note which falls perfectly in beat 3, fulfilling the measure. I'm going to show you now how it sounds applying the counting strategy we have discussed. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 now a little bit faster. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 now with the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 once more. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 the main reason why I still use subdivision in the quarter notes of every measure and in the dotted half note at the end of the study is because it helps us build a consistent tempo not just in each measure but all throughout the piece. Let's say, doing so binds the measure together from start to finish. You can also use this strategy, of course, when slow practicing pieces with eighth notes even if it doesn't have dotted notes in the measure. A good and simple example of this is the Minuet in G from the Anna Magdalena notebook. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 now a little bit faster. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 now with the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 once more. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Let's now move on to the second strategy, which is counting 16th notes by the subdivision of one beat to 4 syllables. This particular technique is very similar to the first one we have discussed, but instead of dividing one bit into 2 halves, we're going to divide it into 4. The easiest and most logical explanation as to how is this possible is because 1/4 note is equal to 2/8 notes and is also equal to 4/16 notes. Just like what we did earlier, we have to account for the notes that aren't being played on any of the syllables, and we can't do that if we count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and in 4/16 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. What we can do is that when we encounter such passages in our piece, we have to approach it in a way that we will count every note that we press in order to achieve a much consistent tempo when we try to speed our playing later on. For this technique, we're going to use 1 ta-teta syllable as we count the measures that have 16th notes, where 1 being the number of the beat just like how we did it the last time. So from our initial counting, which is by using n, we can now change it to the syllables we just learned. 1 ta-teta, 2 ta-teta, 3 ta-teta, 4 ta-teta. A little bit faster. 1 ta-teta, 2 ta-teta, 3 ta-teta, 4 ta-teta. The first example that comes to mind that I should be using to explain this concept further is of course J.S. Bach's Prelude No. 2 in C minor from the book 1 of his Well-Tempered Clavier. Not only that it is fast, and using this method during slow practices can really help you in studying this piece. The piece itself is composed almost entirely using 16th notes. I'm going to show you the first few measures of the piece which we will be using to move further along. First, we need to take note where the main beats are, and as you should all know by now, since 1/4 note is equal to 4/16 notes, the main beat should start at the very first note of every group of 4, which is in 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have 3 notes left in each beat, which we will count as ta, te, and ta. And there you have it. Now we have subdivided the whole measure in which all of the notes are given their each assigned syllable. Let us play the right hand while counting. Now let's try playing both hands together. These are just simple strategies which you can use when learning a piece while trying to maintain a consistent tempo. This works best in slow practicing and from pieces ranging from beginner to intermediate, but the concept can still be applied in difficult passages in every major work. Soon enough, I'll also upload piano tutorials, thorough and visual explanations on difficult terms such as polyrhythms, share some practicing tips, and some other informative topics that are important regarding piano learning. Thank you for watching.